In this episode, we speak with Doug Ricket, founder and CEO of PayJoy, a mission-driven credit provider operating across emerging markets. PayJoy serves customers who lack formal credit history by using patented credit technology, point-of-sale financing, and credit cards designed to open a pathway into the modern financial system. The company has deployed more than $3 billion to over 17 million customers worldwide, achieving profitability while growing across regions including Latin America, Africa, and Asia. Ricket founded PayJoy in 2015 after early career experiences that shaped his focus on financial access, including Peace Corps service in West Africa, engineering work on Google Maps, and inventions that helped launch the pay-as-you-go solar sector. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow.
RJ Lumba is the executive chairman of Market Insight Media and the managing partner of GrowthCap. He is the host of Great Entrepreneurs, a podcast for driven entrepreneurs and business owners. Our podcast covers all topics related to the entrepreneurial journey, from ideation to execution to optimization and to reaping the rewards of a well-run business. In the minutes ahead, we'll share with you unique insights and tactics from some of today's most accomplished and inspiring entrepreneurs.
Doug, good to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me on.
So your story, maybe it starts in undergrad as well as in the Peace Corps. It's not always that you talk to a fintech entrepreneur that did a stint in Gambia. Maybe just to kick off, what prompted you to kind of do that more exploratory phase globally early in life?
Well, thanks for letting me share the story here. I think I was a couple decades early on the AI boom. I went to do AI at MIT just into we'll build the brain in the computer and upload myself to the computer and everything, and just everything tech, deep in that. And I had a lot of fun with it. But I also met all these international students in college, and I had friends from China, from Mexico, from India, all over the world. And that got me thinking about international. So that kind of led me directly to Peace Corps. And I realized also in college, my master's project, I stayed for a fifth-year master's, but it was really not engineering. It was education for engineering. Because I had, I think, a senior year class on microchips. It was super fun, getting out of the computer into the physical world. But I remember looking around in the classroom when this woman behind me asked a question. I looked up and there were like 3 women in a class of 50 men probably. And I thought, hey, this is not chance. This is not random distribution. What's going on here? And so for my master's project, I started a summer school for high school girls to come live at MIT for the summer and study computer science and engineering and math. And it was super cool for me, like working on a social problem. It was a little weird because I was like a man starting a women's project. So that was my master's project and I moved on. The most amazing thing is the university kept running it, has continued running it for the last 23 years, graduating over 1,000 young women. But for me, it was this feeling of working on a social problem and seeing that first class of students come through there and like believe in themselves. That was so amazing and so powerful. So that feeling of like, oh, the cool thing I did was not writing code. It was arranging something to happen with people and seeing the effect on the people. All that kind of came together. I'm like, oh, let me work on something that I really see the impact on people. And hey, here are all these international students who are my friends. What's going on out there in the world? That's what led me to join the Peace Corps and feel like I had to just see more of the world to educate myself. Like, what's going on in Africa? What's going on in China? What's going on in South America? And learn more. So that's how I ended up with going to the Gambia in West Africa.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like maybe this desire to have impact really guided you through your career steps. So then you spend some time with Delight. I remember meeting that company probably after you were there because I met the founder. I was working at Deutsche Bank and their social innovations group. And I remember meeting the founder and being impressed with what they were doing. I think we did fund them for a little bit. We extended them some debt. But do you find that to be the case? Like this desire to have impact socially was guiding your decisions?
Yeah. At the time after Peace Corps, I was working at Google on Google Maps, helped launch Google Maps around the world, helped take it international. We started an office in Kenya that was using an internal mapping tool to create the map of Africa. And I thought, yeah, this is my dream come true. And I was looking to get a little bit more involved. I had visited my African host family, and one year I went back and one of the kids had been injured. actually lost a foot in an injury. It was very sad. And now that I have kids, it really like tugs on my heartstrings. And so I was looking for some way to get more involved with really back to the neediest population in the world. And my good friend Ned from high school is one of the founders of Delight. And we caught up in 2008, 2009. And it was just like, wow, it's business with a mission. It was my first exposure to that social enterprise concept, business and mission together, and it can work. It's like business, go serve 1 million people. You're in the right to go after 10 million, and it can scale. And the mission is there's a heart to it. For them, it's people getting electricity for light, for mobile phone charging. And so it blew my mind. It's like, whoa, this thing can work. So, Ned had gone to China and started manufacturing. His co-founder, Sam, had gone to India and set up sales, and it was working. And so it just grabbed me. I'm like, yes, this is what I want to do with my life. How can I help? And so we came up with the idea for my wife and me to move to Africa and help set up distribution for them in West Africa, where I had been a Peace Corps volunteer. And so we spent a couple of years doing that. And that actually led to the problem for PayJoy. We found this problem of affordability, where a customer would look at this, solar system in a box and say, this is fantastic, it's a good value, but I can't afford it in one big payment right now. And so our idea then became, how can we turn it into small, flexible payments that fit their financial situation? And so I helped launch that with Delight, and they've, since taken it to great success. I think their latest number I heard was like 150 million lives served. That's a lot of people who got electricity through that. And that was also the inspiration for me with PayJoy of, hey, how can we get really access to, beyond solar in Africa, how can we get all kinds of electronics for that entire half of the world, the global south, that doesn't have a fully built out financial system? How can we get them access to the modern technology of the modern world?
It's extremely difficult, I think, to have both mission first as well as fast revenue growth and profitability. We used to see hundreds of these businesses that were social impact businesses that really struggled to make the business side work. You were able to do it and do so in a phenomenal fashion. You have fantastic backers, Warburg, et cetera. How do you kind of maintain that balance, if you're mission first? And does that in some ways dissuade people from backing you? I could see someone saying, well, this guy's going to compromise. Like, they're not going to be totally profit seeking. They're not going to maximize our returns. Was it difficult, or was it pretty intuitive to you?
It was difficult. I don't pretend that I have a solution that can work for everyone and just follow my recipe of success, because I don't think I could even theoretically prove to you that we were destined for success. I mean, a lot of luck, a lot of hard work by a lot of people, and the stars aligned. In hindsight, I think we chose a problem to work on that we believed in from a mission point of view. We believed it was a good thing. Here are these underserved people, and like what credit does for people, it gets them through hard times, right? If your car breaks down and you can't get to work, or your little motorcycle or moped, the money to repair that thing is so valuable. Like money today to repair that thing today, it's so valuable. And then you can get to your job, you can earn money, you can pay it back over 6 months. Like that is a great use of credit for this kind of acute monetary need right now. Or you get hurt, it's like medical insurance. Your vehicle, it's like car insurance. Something goes wrong, you don't have the money today, your whole family is going to get kicked out of your house. That money today is hugely important, and that's what credit can do. And people can pay it back over time when they're calm. That's the negative. On the positive side, we see a lot of our customers who are micro entrepreneurs. Like we do these customer videos now, and one is this family business in Colombia that does arepas cart. Arepas, it's like these Colombian style tacos, basically. And she says, we're tired of working for someone else's dreams. We wanted to work for ourselves. And so now they run these 5 carts across the city of Bogota, and $100 of credit, $200 of credit, that's inventory in the morning. They can turn that into $500 by the end of the day. That's entrepreneurship. That's people getting ahead, but they need a little bit of capital in addition to all the labor to turn that into a business. So we picked this as our mission, getting credit to people who don't have credit. And the thing was, we found about half the world doesn't have credit. They're out of the credit system. So we picked that as our mission. It's something we believe in. And I think in the early days, that let us attract people who really were willing to work for peanuts, to be candid. I mean, I was there too. I remember one of our first investors was like, your team is how big and your monthly payroll is 35K? There's quite a number of people who were sharing that very small pie. And So we started with a problem that we believed in, and then we said, we have to make this a profitable business. And we have to figure out how to make it profitable. And I don't think we had the solution from day one, even as recently as 2022. So we had done a Series C funding round. You mentioned Warburg Pincus Private Equity was our Series C lead investor. And so we'd raised over $100 million. We had about a year after that, we were like, grow, grow, grow. I wasn't even approving headcount. I told our executives, like, grow your team as fast as you can for whatever you need. Transparency, share the headcount you hire, but I'm not holding you back. Grow, everything was grow. And then we saw the macro environment, capital pulling back. And we felt like there's not going to be demand to fund a money-losing startup. I've looked around and we're like, holy crap, extrapolate forward, we're going to need money next year or we shut down. If the money is not going to be there, we need to change. And so we did a couple layoffs that winter, 22 going to 23. I feel like 2 layoffs is always just proof that we were too dumb the first time around and didn't get it right in one cut, because what's worse than one cut is 2, what's worse than 2 is 3. And then people start thinking the company is just dying. But we got it on the second try, and basically immediately we became profitable, and we really optimized the business economics and said, how do we take out cost? How do we increase profit? And so then the last 3 years, I'm super grateful. We've found a good working recipe for profitability, particularly the last 3 years. And so I think, we were forced to do that by the outside environment, threatening us with shutting down the company. And that pressure, forced us to find a sustainable path.
In the early 2000s, I came across this book called Banker to the Poor, and it was about Muhammad Yunus and the Grameen Bank. And it really opened my eyes to this whole microfinance industry globally in all developing countries. And I started to investigate it, like really go to different parts of the world and learn about it, Asia, Latin America. And it was still a very traditional business, right? It was based on character lending, and it worked, though. In some cases, some institutions were a little bit too lax, and so they had maybe a little bit higher default rates. Did you look at that model and say, okay, this is super interesting, it's a big market, and I think we could be in this market using tech? Did that kind of cross your mind, or was it just you had a separate, distinct approach?
I think that stuff is fantastic. It was certainly an inspiration for me, Muhammad Yunus, Grameen Bank, and what they and others have done in that area. I'd say for me, it wasn't as much a research project as more like I was walking down the street one day and I stumbled across this thing. And so it really was with Delight, we were trying to sell people these solar systems, and they say they can't afford it. They don't have the money right now. And they didn't have microfinance available. I mean, they just didn't. Like, we can read about it in a story. I'm telling you, out there in the real world, the places where we were, people didn't have it. It had not come there yet, or it didn't work there, or the capital hadn't arrived, or I don't know, but it wasn't there. And so we were finding customers who said, I don't have cash to buy it today. Or maybe they had $500 cash. It's still not a good idea for them to spend, half of their life savings on a luxury when they don't have to, a solar system. And so we were just saying, hey, we're trying to sell these. How can we make it work for the customer? As a company, we're actually fine if we get paid over 12 months or 18 months for the individual, and the individual customer would also love that. They would love to be able to pay over 12 months. So we had to come up with this system to enable that. And it was programming the solar system to shut off. That was why people would pay after a week to turn it back on. It was these flexible payments where if someone's roof caved in and it's raining, I'm like, they should definitely prioritize fixing their roof first. Don't pay your solar system. You can leave that thing off for a few weeks. That's fine. And that flexibility was really important to our customers. And then, like what we found at PayJoy, we started with smartphones. Smartphones are really important for people. And we got to ride this wave of like the whole world wants a smartphone. Like the first piece of technology that they want to buy if they get together a few $100 is a smartphone. And we did the same thing. We said, hey, we can let people pay weekly. And the way we keep honest people honest, and while allowing them flexibility, is if they don't pay, it shuts off. When they get some money, they can turn it back on, or they pay every week. Great. But if they have some emergency, they can take care of the emergency, and it's flexible. And there's no debt trap. There's no interest accruing. There are no penalties. There are no late fees. To be sure, it's customer friendly, and we're helping them get better. They can return the phone at any time and walk away debt free. We had to put in some kind of safeguards because we found, again, like half the world doesn't have credit. They're not in the credit system. They don't know how to use credit safely. We want to help them. It's like training wheels where they start to use credit. They start to become familiar with it. They build a credit history. They learn what is a good use of credit and what is a poor use of credit.
So is the large majority of your loan portfolio consumer loans versus business loans?
For PayJoy, we underwrite the individual. What we've found as we've done consumer research and interviews and customer stories is a lot of them, like a major use case is these micro businesses. Another one is, I remember this seamstress, like a sewing business where they sew clothes and they publish it on social media and use a smartphone to advertise to their customers. But the credit also allowed them to buy the sewing machines and like expand from 2 sewing machines to 5. And now they can generate more business and grow faster. But we don't actually know at the time of the sale. We haven't started underwriting the business itself. We just underwrite the individual and help them get started with credit.
Can you give us a sense of where most of the loans, like which countries represent the biggest portion of your loan portfolios? Are they in Africa, Latin America, Asia, et cetera?
So today we do the most in Latin America. Our first country that we were lending in outside the US was Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a few years when we thought we wanted to be a software company and licensed to other lenders. And then 2020, we pivoted back to that original business model of PayJoy as the lender. We had only been doing that in Mexico. So that's why we've been in Mexico the longest. And then we've expanded across Latin America, Panama, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil, and then South Africa. We had done a bunch in Africa, actually with Delight. We helped do credit together with Delight for a while in the software model. We now operate in South Africa, Philippines. We've recently gotten going in Indonesia. We're getting going in India. There's a lot of opportunity in Asia, just a lot of people, a lot of need.
Mm-hmm.
Africa, I'd love to get back to. As you know, as we talked about, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Africa. It's very close to my heart. Africa is a little different and it's difficult, but from all signs, this can work. So I think over the next 5 to 10 years, I'd love to really reach billions of people in these markets that are our potential customers.
Have you found that these local financial institutions like look at what you're doing and they're saying like, hey, wait a second, we should be doing this. They have such a profitable model that's growing well. Why don't we try to figure this out and play in this space?
It's interesting. I haven't seen financial institutions do that at all, like never.
Yeah.
The closest thing we see is, like I mentioned, we used to license our software to other lenders. So when we switched back to being a lender, we had kind of seeded a bunch of competitors doing this stuff of small businesses. We acquired one of them a few years ago that had been a customer. That was a company called Adelantos in Colombia, Peru, Panama that worked out well. I don't know, for some reason, I don't see financial institutions. Like when we see the banks in these countries are serving the top 10%.
Right.
Nubank is an interesting one where I think they brought that what was for the top 10% in Brazil, and they're bringing it down to the 80th percentile, the 70th percentile. I think we're coming in at like the 20th or 30th percentile if you ranked everybody in deciles.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen financial institutions do this. The big banks seem to be stuck, and some of it is regulatory,
Right.
where regulatory structures may be modeled after developed countries, restrictions that effectively limit them to be able to serve only the kind of people with a formal white-collar job where they have pay stubs to prove their income. And if you're informal sector, you can't get into that world.
Where are you, do you think, in terms of market penetration? How much further can you go? It seems like this is a massive market.
Yeah, so we started really focused on the smartphone. And then from that, we brought it into general credit for everything. Oh, do I have it? I have my PayJoy credit card. I just got one from Mexico. Here's my PayJoy credit card.
Oh, nice.
We do a lot with the credit card now. What I love about that is you can use it for anything. You can buy a smartphone with your credit card, but you can buy a bed. You can pay for medical expenses, all that stuff we talked about. And so that's really the vision now is credit for everything. That is pretty huge.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really excited to be able to bring that to the whole underbanked population. I think there's a lot there.
Right.
So we're looking at, partnering with major retailers where you walk into the store and you go to the electronics section. I want every TV and washing machine and dishwasher and motorcycle to have a big buy now, pay later sticker, with PayJoy, pay over 26 weeks. This thing can be yours for $15 a week. That'll be huge with the retailers. And then again, just the credit card that can go anywhere. It unlocks online shopping for people who've never done online shopping. Like you look at, companies that have achieved amazing things like Mercado Libre in Latin America. And like our customers, they've never shopped online. They have no way to shop online. Let's open that door and like see how big that is. So I'm really excited about that.
We're coming up on time. 2 final questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who's had a profound influence on you?
I'm just going to give props again to, we talked about D-Light. D-Light was really that example that showed me social enterprise is possible. And here's a shout out to you, Ned and Sam, D-Light founders. That was amazing. And their dedication to build that thing and take it worldwide and show that you can make money and do good. That's huge. That certainly launched my life in an entirely new direction. So I think without them, I certainly wouldn't be here today doing what I'm doing.
This last question, I think it gets wrapped into your whole business, but it's typically, can you tell us about a charity cause or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
I know this sounds super self-serving, but I feel like PayJoy eats up all my attention.
Yeah.
And so again, getting to the social mission, like this is one way I think social enterprise stuff can go wrong is sometimes the nonprofit world gets into really impact evaluation and measurement, and it takes up a lot of time and attention. And so, we have one early investor, Core Innovation Capital, that we do some of this for, but I've also had a conversation with them, like, let's not have the measurement affect the experiment so much. And so at PayJoy, we really started by saying, hey, this is a cause we believe in. Like we really, investigate that deeply. And then actually now we measure it. My partner, Brad, who runs our kind of financial risk side, wrote this document we call the Pricing Manifesto that has these covenants to make sure we are helping our customers, that their lives are better instead of worse. Mm-hmm. So we've been able to do that pretty lightweight with our core metrics, like, hey, do they pay us back? The large majority of our customers are able to successfully pay back. That says our underwriting is working. We're not giving out too much credit. Their life is better. And so I just start with the thing we believe in, make sure it's worthwhile as a mission, make sure it's working and we're not making people's lives worse, and then just go all in at scaling it. So that really eats up my full attention for how we're trying to make the world a better place.
Doug, want to thank you again for taking the time. It's been a wonderful conversation.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me on.